Hello beautiful souls and welcome back to my channel Soul Journey. My name is Beck and today we're doing something a little different. So it is springtime here in the northern hemisphere and there's a lot of energy coming in, going out, all the things. And I just posted a video of my current decks I'm obsessed with. And if you haven't seen it and you're interested in that, definitely go check it out. It is my previous video. But I'm doing a video that I've never really done before. Don't mind my hair. I'm trying to get it out of my face. It's in that real awkward stage. I'm doing a video that I've never done before. This is a video about decks that I am just pulling out of storage because they are calling to me to work with. And so I wanted to go through them with you and just share why they're calling to me during this spring energy, and what's exciting me about them. Some of these I literally have not worked with in like years. One of which was my first deck that my first tarot deck that I ever got. And I actually did not go through my oracle decks. There is one oracle deck here. But this is all tarot. So if you're not interested in tarot, this may not be the video for you. Or if you're just getting into it, these are some really interesting decks. These are decks that I don't see very often. And so maybe they're decks you don't know exist. So definitely stick around if you're interested in that. I'm working on redoing my altar. It's becoming my goddess altar. Lots happening. Good new energy. So I wanted to share with you the decks I'm excited to work with. All right, let's just get into it. So this deck, which a dear friend of mine got for me when I was drooling over it at the store a few years ago, they got it for me, and that is the Zillich Tarot. Now, when I first got this deck, I used it quite a bit, and then I moved, I went through my breakup, I moved, everything got packed away, everything got moved into the camper, and I basically forgot that this deck even existed. And so recently, I was going through my decks because I have these like cabinets that are closed. I don't really see what's in there. That's just where all my decks are. I was going through there and I was like, oh my God, I used to use this all the time. So today was just, again, reorganizing that cabinet and the tarot side of the cabinet, and I saw this and I'm like, I'm gonna pull this out. I don't know, I'm really loving the smaller decks. I have the White Sage Tarot, which was in my decks I'm currently obsessed with video, and it's the same size, and I am completely obsessed with like shuffling that deck. Tarot reader problems. And so I figured, hey, maybe this would be a really fun spring deck. So yeah, let's get into it. So some of these I looked through this morning and I'm just like so excited to work on them. Also, if you're not following me on Instagram, I am doing a daily energy reading for the collective. It's just a 1-card pull, and so I'm using tarot for that. And I'll probably use some oracle at some point too. But if you're interested in a daily energy reading from me, you can go over and check that out in my Instagram, link in my bio. And so I probably will be using a lot of these decks. So if you want to see more of these decks, they'll be there. All right, so let's have a look. This is kind of feeling like, ooh, it's like a new deck. Like all of these I haven't worked with in ages. So I'm like, it's like unboxing a whole new deck. This is US Games. It's got a little white book. If I remember correctly, the descriptions were pretty solid. Yeah. Ooh, they even have the zodiac signs for each of the majors, so that's cool. All right, so let's get into this. So first of all, the backing is so cute. Look at this. Like, isn't that so adorable? And it is like basically the same size as the White Sage Tarot. I must have been doing reversals with this deck because there are a ton of reversals in here. So, it shuffles like a dream. The cardstock is pleasant. Let's take a look. Oh, we are literally starting with the Fool card. So the art for this is very like watercolor abstract. Not quite as abstract as, say, the Zillich Tarot. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. But definitely light and whimsical. We have the Queen of Cups here. I would say, well, let's get a little farther into it. But I would say that maybe this isn't so much of a beginner deck. Yeah, Eight of Wands. I feel like this is interesting too. So it looks like on, like I said, I haven't looked at this deck in ages. It looks like on the bottom of the deck, bottom of the minor arcana, that there are keywords, which is really interesting. So even though maybe this is a little more abstract, this might be a really good beginner deck if you're really looking for those keywords. So Eight of Wands, swiftness, that makes sense to me. Let's see, we have Queen of Swords. So it looks like it's just the minor arcana, not the quartz or the major arcana that have those Six of Cups, pleasure. Interesting. I'm wondering if this is more like the Thoth Tarot, because I don't think of Six of Cups as being pleasure. I think of Six of Cups as being more like inner child work, being of the child mind. So I wonder if this is a little more related to the Thoth Tarot. I haven't really worked with the Thoth Tarot, so Ace of Discs. This is really interesting. So the aces don't have those keywords either. So this is really unique. I think I'm going to have to play with this a little bit. Like, we'll have to see how this goes. Okay, Eight of Discs. Discs. Prudence. So yeah, as you can see, Eight of Discs as prudence. Interesting. Yeah, this must be related to the Thoth, because a lot of these keywords aren't necessarily resonating with how I read them. So if you're more into the Rider-Waite, Three of Swords, sorrow, that's pretty spot on, or you're just learning and you're not interested in the Thoth, this may not be the one for you. Yeah, I think this must be related to the Thoth, because it's got all the symbols in there as well. So I definitely want to play around with this. It's definitely calling to me. We'll see how long it stays in the collection. All right, so that is the Zillich Tarot. I need to go faster on this because we are already 7 minutes in. And I can talk about my decks. Okay, the next one is the Shadowscapes Tarot. And this was one of the first tarot decks I got. Not the first, but this is one of the first. And this deck is absolutely stunning. I actually just looked through all of the cards this morning and just like soaked it all in. The one thing which I think everyone has an issue with the Shadowscapes Tarot is that the deck is too small, in the sense that the art is very detailed. And so if the deck was a bit bigger, we could really like enjoy it. So I know some people who have trimmed this deck and done some things with it. But anyway, this is a very unique deck. And this is one of the decks I'm like really excited to. And I actually use this deck for the energy reading for today. But as you can see, there's so much detail here, which if you're looking for symbolism and to like do some like path working and really get deep into a deck, I highly suggest this, but your eyes have got to be good. This deck always sings to me, but for some reason I don't end up using it that much. And I think that's because I just have a lot of other decks that I tend to gravitate towards more, but it's not because I don't like this deck. It's because I have so many other decks that I end up using. And there may be some nudity in some of these decks. I'm trying to remember. Maybe. But this is such a beautiful deck. If you love that like ethereal, otherworld, spiritual, slightly fey energy, you will probably love this deck. And I would say that even though this is a very different art style from like the traditional Rider-Waite, all the symbolism is still there. So if you're working with the Rider-Waite and you want something that's just like completely different, this might work for you. I think elegant would be the word to sum up this deck. It's just beautiful. And I'm really excited to work with it. Let's see. Yeah, Really beautiful. So this is a deck that, like, you could study. I feel like you could study this deck and you get a lot out of it. Now, this next deck is the Tarot of the Hidden Realms, I believe. I should have looked that up before. I actually, some of these I don't even have boxes for anymore because they were just big and clunky, and I've moved several times. This is the first tarot deck I ever got. And what's interesting about this deck is I would never suggest this as a first deck because the imagery is there, like the symbolism is there if you know like what you're looking for, but it's super subtle. And definitely hard to read. But the reason I got this deck, and this is what's so interesting, I was raised very Christian, and tarot was the devil. one of many things. And, you know, I left Christianity. I was moving into my spirituality. I loved oracle cards, and tarot just kind of kept like being like, hello, hello. But I could not bring myself to get a normal tarot deck. And at that time, what was available for tarot decks was like so minuscule to what it is today. And so I had always loved fairies and elves and things of that sort. And so this deck was the only deck that I felt was like my energy enough to explore the tarot with, which is ironic because fae energy can be very dark. It's so funny, our misconceptions about things sometimes. So when I first got this, I was completely overwhelmed, and I had no idea what I was looking at, but I was just so drawn to the tarot. And so I ended up getting some other decks and learning more deeply the system with other decks because this just wasn't good for a beginner. And I never really ended up using this deck. And now looking through it, like, and knowing the tarot, I'm like, oh, I could use this now. Like, this is beautiful. Like, this has got a whole other energy to it. And it's not like deep, deep fae. It's just like, it's got that like elven vibe to it. And so this is a beautiful deck, and now I'm excited to, and kind of in the same way as the Shadowscapes, I feel like you could path work with this. I feel like you could go deep into each of the stories of each of these cards. I'm kind of excited to explore this deck from a much more knowledgeable space because the symbolism, at least in most of the cards, is there. It really is. It's just because all the cards are these like up close faces, it's just not as obvious. It's not as easy to know what you're looking at. But again, if you know the cards, these images are actually really amazing. So yeah, we've got like the Five of Pentacles. And I remember looking at these and being like, what does this mean? And now it's obvious to me. The World. Queen of Cups. But as you can see, it's not a lot of like action shots. The Fortune Fairy, that's the Wheel of Fortune. You know, it's not a lot of these action shots. So it's a little harder to really, you know, grasp it if you're trying to learn. Nine of Pentacles. Nine of Cups. Yeah. And I do like that it has a balance of the masculine and feminine. That's really wonderful. And it's extremely earthy. And actually, kind of, there's like kind of a Celtic vibe going on here too. It's almost like you can't tell if they're elves or humans. I feel like someone who really likes Lord of the Rings might really appreciate this deck. Anyway, so excited to work with that. Let's see. And if you're wanting to learn the tarot slowly, I am going to be doing my daily energy readings with the tarot. So if you kind of want like to get into the meanings, maybe sit with each card like just for the day, I do have my interpretation of the card for that day, that energy, with the card. So if you're interested, that might be something that you want to do. All right, the next one is the Crystal Unicorn Tarot. We're taking a hard left into a very different energy. I got this a few years back for my birthday. I picked it out. And it's got a little, well, it's not a white book. This actually has some pretty good meanings in it. And it's a really cute little book. I don't know why. I'm not even really into unicorns, but this deck just sang to my sweet little inner child. This is the backing. It's so cute. I just love her. And this is literally a reproduction of the Rider-Waite-Smith, but with unicorns. I mean, like, literally. Oh my god. This cardstock is super delicious. Highly recommend. This is by Luna Instagram. This might be, I know I got this on Amazon, but this, I guess it must be mass produced. It's from China, but I'm not seeing like one of the big companies, so this might be like privately produced. I'm not sure, but this is just the cutest, and this is so springtime vibes to me. Like, this is so like whimsical and sweet and gentle. But what's interesting about this deck, if I can remember correctly, is it's not just like, oh, feel good deck. Like, it will tell you what you need to know. Oh my gosh. For any of you who know the Rider-Waite, like, this is everything. It's just so cute. Yeah, but the cardstock is delicious. Do you just not want me to see what you are? Come on. Oh, there we go. It's just so stinking cute. But it really is just a Rider-Waite-Smith with unicorns. I mean, that is literally... So again, if you like if you're learning the Rider-Waite-Smith and you can't stand the art, it's definitely not my favorite, and you like unicorns and you like whimsical, this might be the deck for you. And I'm really excited to work with this. It's like so stinking cute. And it's gentle. Like, it's so gentle. Now, this would have been a good beginner deck for me. The deck that really helped me was the Druid Craft Tarot. And if you would like a video of decks I would suggest for beginners, let me know. And I could do one for Oracle and Tarot if you're so inclined. Yeah. All right. This next deck. This is the... Oh my gosh, I'm going to forget what it's called. Hold on. All right, sorry. This is the Heart of Fairy Oracle. Now, this is not actually in circulation right now. Sorry. This is another Oracle deck that I got at the beginning of my journey, thinking, oh, it's fairies. And, now I know, that Fae energy is really intense and not necessarily friendly, even though I feel very connected to it. But I always found that the book for this was extremely confusing and did not line up with anything I was like experiencing. Now, the other Fairy Oracle by Brian Froud is out. I don't have it, but now I kind of want it. But anyway, so I don't even have the book like in the camper with me. Like, it's packed somewhere. But now that I read intuitively, and now that I am much more confident in my energy reading, I was pulling out these decks and I was like, let me have a look at this. I also found out recently that this is a relationship deck, which I find really interesting because I didn't know that when I got it. And now I'm kind of like, ooh, this could be interesting. So let's have a look. I did look through these cards earlier, and now I'm really intrigued by these key words as like a way to really look at a relationship and the energy around it. And I feel like this is going to be a very intuitive read. And maybe that's why I didn't understand the book as well, because it wasn't obvious that it was a relationship deck, but maybe if I went back and looked at the book, I'd be like, oh, okay, there it is. But I'm kind of seeing this as like, let's take a look at that relationship. Let's see if everything's on the actual up and up. Like, that's what I kind of feel like this deck may be. And for some reason, these beings don't freak me out like they used to. They kind of feel like not beings I'd be friends with, but beings that have wisdom. Beings that hold energy that maybe another deck wouldn't. And have a message that another deck wouldn't. And so I'm kind of curious about working with this. And my partner, who is a practicing druid, you know, the Celtic, what's the word I'm looking for? Working with the Celtic energy, they work with the Fae, and they don't have a fear of it, whereas a lot of people do. It kind of freaks them out. It's like, I don't understand these rules. It's dangerous. Let's not. But I'm curious, you know, to dip my toe in, not like directly connect with the Fae, but like dip my toe into exploring that earthy energy. I just feel like my entire being wants to connect with the earth. And these are the, you know, the beings of that other world. And they're not necessarily malicious, necessarily. They're just different beings. They are higher dimensional beings. A lot of channelers have connected with this energy, and they're 5D, 5 and 6D beings, and so they just have a different perspective, different way of being. And so I find that very curious. And so I think this might be an interesting way of delving in. So yeah, let me know if that interests you and if you have that deck. I've also heard, like I said, the other fairy oracle by Brian Froud apparently is really, really good. And I kind of want it now. All right, this next deck is a Lucy Cavendish deck. It's the Oracle Tarot. And this is a really unique deck because it has no court cards. And I actually bought this in Australia. It is a Hay House. Lifestyles. That looks like the Hay House thing, but it doesn't say that. This is a really good beginner deck, especially if you're finding court cards challenging and you're kind of wanting to put them to the side a little bit. I do recommend this. Now, I got this deck in Australia, and it really represents a very specific chapter in my life. This book is actually very good. This just has a very specific energy around manifesting and getting clear for me while in Australia. And you might obviously have a totally different experience with it, but this just had a lot of synchronicities for me. So this is called the Oracle Tarot. So it's not quite the traditional, but if you're learning the keywords for the tarot and you just can't stand the court cards right now, this is the deck that might serve you well. It's also a little more gentle than, like, there's really no negatives in this deck. It's like it's made every card like palatable for someone who's really just trying to step into it and not get like the heavy shadow stuff. So as an example, we have the tarot, and this has keywords on it. So this has discovery, change, adjustments, instead of like, your life's crumbling, let it all go. You know, this is a little more gentle. This is the Hanged Man, suspense, waiting. So this is really good for just stepping into the tarot. And this, anyone could read with this. This is Seven of Swords, ego, internal politics. I really like the art for this too. It's really unique. We have recovery, retreat for Four of Swords. So actually, it doesn't say Four of Swords on it. It just has the four with the swords, and then it has the keywords. So that's kind of interesting. So the only words on it are really the keywords. So that's interesting. This is Six of Cups, reflection. Seven of Cups, decadence, and indulgence. Now, not all of these keywords resonate with how I read the cards, but that's okay. They might be perfect for you. 8 of Wands, swift decisions. Let me see if I can get to some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Major arcana. Now, this is change, release the past. I have a feeling this is the death card. I believe. It doesn't say the death card, like death. It doesn't say the number on it. So again, you know, it's a little abstract, so you'd have to be okay with that. We have the Empress, fertility, sensuality. That's beautiful. Temperance, balance, and harmony. Judgment, putting the past to rest. We have Ace of Cups. It's just 1 of Cups, new love energy. And of course, all of these cards, you know, go so much deeper. Oh, this is bondage. I believe this would be the Devil card. Issues of control and freedom. All of these cards, of course, go way deeper. But it is a good starting point. The Star, hope, inspiration, nature. And this deck will tell you, you know, what you need to know. It's definitely not like just a soft deck, but it definitely is softer than maybe some of these other decks. Let's see, the World. Blessed, love, life. That'll be 10 of Cups. So yeah, ooh, the High Priestess, feminine influence, inner guidance. So yeah, I really like this deck. It's very different. It's very abstract. It is more like the shape of an oracle deck. I think it's interesting that it's called the Oracle Tarot. Maybe it's because it has those keywords, and it's more shaped like an oracle deck. I'm not sure. And it doesn't have the court cards, so it's definitely not like a full tarot deck. So, you know, there's a lot different with that, but hey, that might be the deck that just does it for you. All right, and this last deck in this wooden box that sort of looks like a coffin, which is not intentional, is my Tarot Vampires. Now, this deck, I'm kind of surprised called to me, because I usually think of this as more of like a very shadowy deck. Okay, I kind of see it. Fall deck. But then I know there are people who use this as their main deck. So, you know, it really just depends on what floats your boat. This is a much darker deck. So again, taking another hard turn. I have used this deck a handful of times. And when I have, now the cardstock is meh. This deck will tell it as it is. And I feel like I haven't used this deck in a long time. And I feel like this is another one of those decks where, like, when I first got it, I was like, what am I looking at? And now I'd probably appreciate it a lot more. So I'm excited to delve into this. I also am now offering a shadow work tarot reading that I usually use my Nicoletta Ciccoli tarot. But now I'm kind of thinking that maybe I'll switch it up too and use this deck as well for those readings, just intuitively. Not everyone uses this. It's purely shadow work deck, but I mean, for me, there's so many other decks I would use for other types of readings, so I feel like this would be more of a shadow deck. It's confronting, and sometimes that's good. This deck almost feels to me like if Lord of the Rings met like a vampire movie. So I'm kind of interested to see how this is coming through. But what's interesting is the Nicoletta Ciccoli Tarot came up for me in the last couple months. And then the Kali Oracle really wants to work with me. And now this deck. So I know I'm moving through a lot. So I feel like maybe there's that balance of it's spring, we're clearing out the dust. Like we're doing that shadow work so we can bring this light in. And then a lot of these other decks are very light. So maybe there's a balance coming in. God, I hope. So this is a very interesting deck. I don't really have a lot to say about it. It's like, it just is what it is. It's like, I feel like this is the shadow world. This is where, you know, you kind of go, okay. Like, for instance, this is Four of Grails, Four of Cups. So, you know, for me, Four of Cups is all about lack, the ego. And, you know, we have this vampire drinking their blood. There's like a need energy. But also I feel like there's stuff going on with her too. Yeah, it's just very interesting. So yeah, if you're looking for like a deep shadow deck and you like vampires and you like something that's a little more just like confronting, this could be the deck for you. I do feel like the imagery for me isn't quite as clear as some other decks. So I wouldn't necessarily suggest this as a beginner deck, but then again, I have a friend who this was her beginner deck, and it is her tarot baby. It's like everything. So, you know, and we'll leave it on the sun, which I think is actually quite a beautiful card. I also love the Lovers card from this deck. I think it's funny, like this is the 10 of Knives or 10 of Swords, and like compared to the rest of the deck, it just looks like another card to me. I mean, it's definitely got that energy, but it's just like, ooh, I do love the Death card. A lot of these cards are really quite beautiful. Like, they're, and also I feel like if you're dealing with like shame around sexuality and things like that, and moving through that, this could be a really good deck for you. Again, it's that shadow, the Empress there. And there's definitely like, I went through a vampire phase for several years, and so there's a part of me that really appreciates this deck. Let's see, where is the, oh, that's interesting, Three of Cups. It's a little bit of a different vibe for the Three of Cups, but like being social is there. Where is my Lovers card? Did I miss it? It should be the last card. It's the second to last card. This is the Lovers, and I just think it's beautiful. So anyway, those are the current decks I'm excited to start working with. I also have a lot of decks out here that I'm like, I think they're going away. So, you know, there is a turning of the tide for a lot of my decks, and I'm excited to see how they play. Now, like I said, I hadn't looked through all these decks. I literally just pulled them out a couple hours ago. Some of them I'm like, we'll see how it goes. Other ones I'm just like, I am so excited to work with this. So if you know, depending on how it goes, when I do my next decks I'm obsessed with, or currently obsessed with, we'll see if some of these have made it onto that list. So comment down below, are any of these decks you have, decks you've worked with, decks you're interested in? Some of these are kind of wild and different, and like I said, a lot of these I don't see very often, because a handful of these are fairly older decks, like decks that were around, you know, well, when I started doing tarot was 7-8 years ago, which doesn't sound that long, but in the tarot world, like I said, there was so much less to work with, and just there's so many new decks now that a lot of these decks don't even get talked about. So let me know, have you heard of these decks? Do any of these intrigue you? Yeah. And if you want to check out my daily energy readings for the day, definitely check out my Instagram and my shop Instagram. I'm going to have them on both. If you're interested in that. And all my other social media links are in the description down below, along with my Etsy shop, where I offer personal private readings, channeling, and crystal jewelry. And I've got all my other social media down there, along with my Patreon and all that good stuff. So thank you so much for watching. I know this is a bit of a long video, but I felt like some of this was kind of like literally unboxing decks for the first time again. So there you go. I hope you like long tarot videos. And if you would like me to do this with Oracle decks, I haven't gone through my Oracle decks. I don't know if I want to pull any out. But if you want to see a video similar to this with Oracle decks, let me know. And maybe I'll do that at some point. So, yeah, I think that's everything. All right, many blessings, you guys. Namaste. And don't forget, it's all about the soul journey. Bye. I just realized this says 2021. I'm gonna need a new one of those. Can you tell I've been, love you guys.